Hello and welcome. Oh my gosh, this is so weird. This is the very first episode of the Notes and Quotes podcast. Hi, everyone. My name is Naomi, and I am your host of the very first episode. Well, all of the Notes and Quotes podcast, but I am your host today for this very first episode. Today, we are going to be talking about breaking out of your niche. So, have you ever felt like pigeonholed in, I don't know, anything like a degree, a career, a job, an identity, anything like that, where you just feel like you're one thing, like you have a label on you in a way. And I don't mean labeled as like a girl, a boy, or, you know, black, white, anything like that. I mean labeled in terms of who you are and what you do. So, for example, I am technically labeled as a climate activist. That's what most people know me as career wise. But then, sometimes in other circumstances, depending on where I am, people know me as the model. But most times, like I would say 9 times out of 10, when people think of me, it's like, oh, Naomi, the climate activist, Naomi, the person that's into sustainability, that kind of thing. And sometimes you just like want to kind of break out of that box. You want to kind of like be known as more than just that one thing, that one label that you are. Maybe you're known as, I don't know, like Michael, the scientist, the guy that's into biology or something. I have no idea. But sometimes you just want to break out a little bit. And it's not to say that I'm not no longer like passionate about my niche that I'm in, that being climate activism. Of course I am. It's something that I, will preach and advocate for my entire life. And I think it's one of the core issues that we should be focusing on. But I don't want to be just that one thing. So our quote for today is identify your niche and dominate it. And when I say dominate it, I just mean work harder than anyone else could possibly work at it. And that is a quote by Nate Parker. I literally just found this quote on Google when I looked up quotes about like staying in your niche. Um, and first, before we actually get into this topic, I feel like we should all be on the same page when I talk about niche. So let's get like a definition for niche. Like what does it actually mean? So the definition that I found on niche, once again on Google, is a job or a position that's very suitable for someone, especially one that they like. So basically, like a box that you are in, you like that box, but it's what everybody knows you for. It's your job or passion that you are known to be very suitable for, and everybody knows you for that one thing. And once again, I mean, that's fine. But sometimes you just have an urge to do something else. Like maybe, a different career is like winking at you. For me, I have a strong interest in advocacy, social and climate justice and that kind of thing. But I also have a very, very strong interest in fashion, in, that kind of career, the fashion industry, that stuff. I'm also interested in media, not just social media, but just like creativity as a whole. I'm interested in art. I'm also interested in like journalism and writing and that kind of thing. So there's so many different aspects of you that kind of sometimes don't, in a traditional sense or in like the most obvious sense, fit into that one niche that you are known to have, that people know you as. So, and I think it can be a really big dilemma because it literally is like a self identity crisis. Because, especially for people in their 20s, when it's literally a time where you're just trying to figure out who you are and you just like all over the place. Like you're literally just trying to figure out, okay, what do I want my career to be? What do I want my life to look like? Who do I want to be known as? Maybe even like you're thinking about what kind of legacy you want to leave for yourself. Personally, I don't really stress about the legacy thing. I kind of don't care. I just want to know what I want my life to look like for me right now and possibly what I want to be doing in the future. And that can be really daunting, especially when you don't know what kind of niche you want to commit to. And sometimes you don't even want to commit to a niche, like sometimes you want to be multiple things. For me, I'm kind of in that space, that headspace right now where, yes, I want to continue my climate activism. I want to be that person. I want to, be making a difference in the world and a better difference in the world and actually advocating for issues that matter and that are really important, and making that meaningful change. But I also don't want to be only known as that one thing. Like, for example, if you look at my Instagram, I would say probably like 85% of my Instagram, you will very easily put me in a box because of that 85%, which is just sustainability and climate activism, that kind of thing. Um, but I also want to be known as a multifaceted person, a person that is doing all of these other things as well that are interesting to me. But then sometimes, it's not so good to be so mixed up in a way, because then sometimes people don't know how to place you. And that's not necessarily like you don't need to live your life so that other people can understand and figure you out. But when I was doing research on this issue and this like dilemma that I am at least facing, and I know other people tend to face, like it's kind of an existential crisis to be figuring out who you are and what you want to be and like the niche that you want to be in. Um, some people have like mixed views. So I found benefits and downsides to, going beyond the box or staying inside of a niche or something like that. So the first benefit that I found was you can increase your reputation and kind of become like an expert in that field. And I've seen that like firsthand, obviously. And I mean, I guess it's the most obvious one as well. If you were to stay in that one field and you continue growing in that field and you continue studying there, you continue, your career there and just overall growing there, then of course you're going to increase your skills, you're going to increase your reputation and people that know you for that one thing, and you'll become reputable and people will come to you for, either advice on that one topic that you're super knowledgeable about, or, you will get better jobs because you're more qualified and you're known as like an expert on that one thing. That's obvious. Like I think that's the biggest benefit to staying inside of a niche. And then one that I have definitely benefited from, the second benefit that I found was gaining connections in that field. So for me, being in climate activism and having had the opportunity to grow so much, I have gained so many different connections through it. Whether it be, like people who are already experienced in that field or people who are at my level or inspiring other people who are looking to do the things that I do, or just like having these international opportunities and stuff like that. You gain connections and you gain opportunities because you're known for that one thing, and then people will come to you, and it goes in hand with the first benefit, like getting that increased reputation for that one thing. um so that's definitely a benefit as well. And then I guess lack of competition over time. When you start to develop your skills, you become better at that one thing, and like whether it's you're a finance geek, you become like super reputable, and when you're going to apply for a job in finance or something, then everybody knows that you're in finance. You have a really good CV or resume, whichever you call it, and you have less competition because people know you as the finance guy, or people know you as the climate expert or the fashion expert or whatever. Um, so you have less competition when you're applying for jobs and stuff like that. So I guess that is a benefit as well. But then let's jump over to the downsides. And the downsides are kind of what I've been dwelling on right now, because I have that itch and that urge to diversify my being and my reputation as a whole. So the first downside is, for me, the most obvious downside. The whole reason why we're doing this episode is you get stuck in a career box, you know? So when you're stuck in a career box, it's like I am only known as this one thing, and I can't, it's so hard to now break out of it for so many different reasons. One, people, it's a little daunting because people don't really know you to be doing that one thing. Let me give an example so it's like more it's easier to visualize. Let's say I am a botanist and I am known as a botanist, and I have spent 25 years working in botany and botanical areas, and now I'm pursuing a career in law, you know? It's so like it's just can be strange and daunting because it's like you're wondering what other people are going to think. And then you're also like, can I even do this? Like, do I even have the career assets to do that? Like the CV to do that? Do I have the experience and all those things? But I am interested in it, so I really want to do it. So you're still in that mentality of being stuck in a career box. So that can be a bit of a downside to staying inside of that niche because when you now want to break out of it, it's just such it feels like such a big feat. But I think in a way it's worth it because the other downside is of course becoming miserable and losing your passion. Because I'm not really afraid to admit that that is something that happened to me. I would say maybe 2 years into my avid climate activism, near the end of the year, I started to feel like a loss of passion. Like it was almost like I was experiencing climate apathy. Like I was just not, it was almost, not truly, but almost like I didn't care about the issue anymore. And I just felt like, why am I even doing this anymore? Like, do I even really care about all of this? Like, do I actually really like have an interest in this? And it was really just the fact that I was a bit burnt out. Um, and that passed for sure. But at the time, it was like, do I want to commit my entire being and my entire self to this one thing? And if I was to, and if I was to continue burning myself out with it, then what does that mean for my quality of life? And what does that mean for myself? Am I really like truly living to the best of my ability and truly to myself if I'm just trying to stick in my niche for, almost like the public, but not really the public, but like for myself as well, because I was extremely passionate about this one thing, and now I'm realizing that's changing a bit, or maybe it's lessening a bit, because it's also mainly because you're ignoring the other aspects of yourself. So where I'm at now is I will always, always be passionate about my original niche, which is sustainability, climate activism, all of that, because I mean, I'm not going to get into all of that now because it's it's another episode that we're going to discuss. But that's an issue that it's not like just one career you decide to jump into. It's an existential issue, and it should be the main focus of almost every single career choice or person that decides to live. Like you should always be interested in what's happening to our planet and our surroundings. But the point is you tend to become a bit miserable if you ignore the other aspects of yourself and you just decide that I'm going to stick in this one box and just be this one thing. So that's a bit of a downside as well. And then the other downside is you just have less diversity, less chance for exploration in your life. It can be really restricting. It can feel like you are literally stuck in a box. And all the other different possibilities that you could have for your life. Like if I was to follow all of my different passions and go into fashion, and go into art or go into any like other creative sphere, which I do have like a burning interest in, what would that mean for my life? Like how cool would it be to experience all of these different new things? Why should I restrict myself from that because I feel the pressure to stick in this one niche and be this one thing and not, to become too muddled with all of these other little hobbies that I might not dedicate fully to or realize later on that I don't actually like and did I just waste my time? But I don't think that that's the point of it. I think it's you're supposed to be diverse and explore in your life and, you know, just try and live it to the fullest in a way. I know that's such a cliche statement, but there is some truth to it as well. So that's why I kind of like go back to the quote that we had at the beginning by Nate Parker, where he's talking about, identifying what your niche is, figuring it out, sticking to it, dominating it, and, working super hard at it. That's a very good message. And it is like, there's nothing wrong with that. But does it mean that you have to abandon every other aspect of who you are and all the other burning little interests that you have in life? I don't think so. I think that you should try to be diverse and try to explore more. So yeah, those are the benefits and downsides that I found for sticking inside of your niche when I was researching it. And I think that you can kind of hear my opinion on it. I feel like you should try and explore more. Um, and it's actually really interesting because it led me to another thought. So everybody remembers COVID when we were all in lockdown and there was a massive, massive, massive career switch epidemic, pandemic, whichever you want to call it. I'm not sure what the right word is. I guess pandemic because COVID was a pandemic. But everybody was switching careers. Everybody was either switching careers because they had to, unfortunately, because, like a lot of people lost their jobs for various reasons. But then there was also a good chunk of people who were switching careers just because they realized, oh, life is too short. I don't know how much time I have left. I don't know when we're going to get out of this crisis. So why not try this other hobby that I've, always been interested in? Or maybe let me jump over from this boring ass career that I'm in, or not necessarily that it's a boring ass career, but maybe it's a career I've been doing and I've loved, but I am now interested in something else and this is my opportunity to do it. Why don't I? There was a lot of people who were doing that as well during COVID. And what was so interesting is I actually did some research about it. And one of the leading reasons for the career switch during COVID beyond, the people who were forced out of their careers was not actually, the leading reason was not actually related specifically to COVID-19. It was more the reason that people just wanted the choice to try something new. They had an urge to try something new. They had the incentive to try something new because there's this great big crisis that's going on and everybody's stuck inside. And when you're stuck inside, and for the people that were stuck inside alone, you kind of become very introspective as well and start thinking about your life. And there was a massive, trend to better your life. Everybody was working out and reading more and all of these different things. And in that, I guess you kind of inevitably start pursuing some of your other passions. And that led to other people switching careers. In the survey that I read, where I found that quote that the leading reason for the career change was not actually specifically COVID-19, but the urge to try something new and the choice to try something new, it was about 57% of the people that did the survey responded to that they wanted to try something new. So then if everybody is pursuing their passions and their different interests and stuff and realizing that maybe it is better to do that and maybe it is more fulfilling to become more diversified in your identity, your career, your personality, your reputation, whatever it may be, should we really stick in this box? Should we really rely so much on a niche and a label? The reason that I even thought about this topic is it took me back to all of those different times when you have to introduce yourself. So you stand up in the classroom or you stand up at a conference and you're about to ask a question and you identify who you are. Hi, my name is Naomi Cambridge. I am a climate activist. I am 21. I'm from Barbados, blah, 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 blah. I think for me, I've had to say that so many different times in so many different settings because, you just have to introduce yourself all the time. People have to do it throughout their whole lives. You do it from primary school level, at least in Barbados is what we did. You had to stand up in class and introduce yourself on the first day, say who you are, maybe say something like one thing that you're interested in, one hobby or something. Hi, I'm Naomi Cambridge and I like to read books. You're always kind of labeling yourself a little bit by one attribute. And maybe we don't have to do that in our outer lives beyond that. Maybe we can just be as diverse as we want to be and don't not think of it as being scattered. Maybe we can actually pursue all of our potential avenues in some ways. Obviously, in a realistic sense, you cannot be every single thing or every other alter ego that you can think of. But I feel probably just pick a couple passions that are itching away at you and try and see which ways you can pursue them. If you actually think you want to do a career in one of them, why not explore it? Of course, it's not always so easy to just go and diversify your life and try all these other avenues. It's not always realistic. It's not always possible. There's so many different reasons for that. But I do think that there are different ways that you can connect your passions to your original niche as well. For me, as I have said probably a million different times in this podcast episode, but my niche is climate activism. My niche is sustainability. Uh, and I can connect that to fashion. I can connect it to art. I can connect it to journalism. I can connect it to anything. I can connect it to media. I can literally find different ways in which I can connect it and explore that career. That's kind of the beauty of sustainability, because it's a multifaceted and multi-sectoral issue, so you can connect it to many different things. But let's give something that's not traditionally thought to be connected. Let's connect finance and the fashion industry. There's different ways that you can connect, and maybe you have a niche in finance. You are an investment banker. To be honest, I don't really know what an investment banker is specifically. I just know that that's a career. You're an investment banker and you have an interest in fashion. Every time Fashion Week comes around, you're like, oh my God, I would love to be working behind the scenes of Fashion Week. I'm sure there are ways that you can connect investment banking or just finance in general to the fashion industry. And even if there aren't, even if you can't find it, there's other ways you can pursue your passions, whether it's joining like a club of people who are interested in the same thing, or whether it's, like making a social media page or a blog talking about it and stuff, or doing exactly what I'm doing. Start a podcast, talk about a bunch of different things, like there's different ways that you could do things. Everything connects, and there's always ways to pursue your passions in different ways. You don't have to start a whole career in something, but you can still pursue other passions without feeling like you're being undecided or scattered or something. I don't think that you should ever be made to feel like you have to be one thing. And I felt like that so many different times, which is also why I had such a hard time when I was younger trying to figure out what I wanted to be when people would ask me that question. I still have no idea. Because I can't ever see myself as being one thing. I just can't. It's too restricting for me, and I think a lot of people feel the same way as well, which is why so many people, especially younger people, have a hard time figuring out what they want in life, because it's like the norm to feel like you have to pick one thing and pick one niche and stick to that thing, and that is who you are. And I don't think that we should live like that. So just do what makes you happy, like just do whatever it is that makes you happy within reason. Once you're not harming anybody, once you're not doing anything illegal, do what makes you happy and figure out how diverse you want to be and go for it. So Nate Parker said that we should identify our niche and dominate it, stick to it, work hard at it and be the best that you can be at it. Absolutely. I totally agree. But I don't think that means you have to abandon every other aspect of yourself. Not to say that's what he was saying, but I think that it is a good sounding board, or what's the term? Like a good foundation to jump into for this topic of today. My takeaway is do what makes you happy. Do whatever it is that you feel passionate about. Explore all your little itches and urges and stuff. I'm now realizing that sounded vaguely sexual, but that's not what I meant. But you know what I mean. Just do what you feel is best for you. Live your life diversely and with as much exploration as you want. So that's all I have for today, guys. Thank you so, so much for listening. This was fun. Oh my gosh, this is the end of my first ever podcast episode. I hope you enjoyed. I hope I didn't ramble too much. If I did, please forgive me. Do come back next week, Tuesday, to hear another topic that we will be talking about. And if you want to keep up to date with the podcast, follow us on the Notes and Quotes Pod on Instagram, the Notes and Quotes Podcast on YouTube, and the Notes and Quotes Pod on TikTok. So thank you so much for listening once again, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.